Good morning, everyone. Call Electoral Area Service Committee meeting Wednesday, July 9th to order. We have a quorum this morning. Chair acknowledges we're located on the traditional territory of the Latch-Watach people, and the first item of business will be the adoption of the public agenda.
Move adoption.
Second.
Thank you. Anything there? All in favor? That's carried. No petitions or delegations this morning. Adoption of previous meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Anything there? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Any business arising? No public considerations, notice of motion or chair's report. On to staff reports. Number 1, development variance permit application DV2D25 Weeb for receipt.
Move receipt.
Second.
And I believe Kelty will speak to this, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Thank you. Good morning to the chair and directors. Development variance application DV2D25 at 197 Linnea Place is to reduce the required side yard setback for an existing dwelling unit from 4.5 meters to 4.29 meters, and for an existing accessory building from 4.5 meters to 1.5 meters. The subject property has a land use designation of residential in the OCP and is within the residential 1A zone. A subdivision application was received by the SRD, and as a part of the review, it was determined that a variance for existing buildings is required to make the property compliant with the Area D Campbell River Area Zoning Bylaw. The alternative would be to remove a portion of the existing structures, which would cause the property owner undue hardship. Analysis of the requested variance indicates that there is minimal impact to adjacent landowners, as the corner lot has Rutledge Road frontage on the side property line and across from the outer boundary of the city of Campbell River. There's currently no development in this area of the city, and there are a minimal number of residential lots in the SRD in this rural location. The application was on the July 2nd APC agenda, which could not take place due to lack of quorum. The applicant was also in attendance at the meeting, and therefore an option to defer consideration of the DVP until after APC review is completed is given. Or that the application be received and forwarded to the next board meeting and be approved. The next APC meeting is on July 30th, and it would delay the application process, and both the DVP and subdivision assessment would be delayed until the next meeting cycle. As the application does not vary use or density, there would be minimal impact and no change to current conditions. The application is considered supportable. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything on receipt? Mr. Mooney?
Okay, thank you, Chair. I had one question, and that is that there's two variances, 5% for the home, but more like 66% for the shop. Would that variance be applicable to the existing building? What would happen if they make renovations to or adjust that structure?
Thank you for the question. Through the chair, the variance runs with the land. It's specific to the structure. So the wording of the permit specifies that it's for an accessory building and that it's for an existing principal dwelling unit. Thanks.
Okay, and if I may, Chair, I'm just going to say that I personally think that, and I totally understand a minor variance of 5% for the home, but with a variance of 66% for the shop, I would have a preference myself to have the Area D APC weigh in on that before we proceed.
Mr. Rice?
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to agree with staff that I think that we have an opportunity to move this forward. It's unfortunate that the APC committee didn't have a quorum. I think it's quite important that when we have these items come to the board that we move them along quickly. Delaying it a month could be quite a hardship to the owner. So I'm going to be moving option A. And I think that that's the best one in this case. Thank you.
On receipt, all those in favor? That is carried. Motion to authorize.
I'd like to move option A, that the committee recommend that the development variance permit DV2D25 at 197 Lena Place, as presented in the staff report dated July 9th, 2025, be approved.
Do I have a seconder?
Second that.
Director Van Ash seconded it. All those in favor? That is carried. Anyone opposed? None opposed. Thank you. Number 2, development variance permit application DV3D25 Newfeld.
Move receipt.
Second.
Thank you.
And I believe Kelty will speak to this as well.
Thank you. The development variance application DV3D25 at 422 Enquist Road is to reduce the required rear yard setback from 7.5 meters to 3.0 meters to facilitate the completion of construction of a new accessory building. The corner lot is located adjacent to other CR4 zoned parcels. The subject property is a smaller lot of 0.43 acres compared to other CR4 zoned properties to the east. For example, abutting a 4.98 acre parcel, which is the minimum lot size of the CR zone, and was developed as part of a 1973 development prior to the current enactment of the Area D Campbell River Area zoning bylaw. Properties zoned residential, for example, are permitted accessory buildings closer to the rear yard setback. The lot has a septic system also centrally located on the lot, and the owner requests the variance to avoid disturbance of an existing septic system, which would cause undue hardship. The property owner has since indicated that the accessory building will be more than the requested variance of 3.0 meters from the rear property line, so it would cause minimal impact to the adjacent property and is in keeping with the smaller lots in suburban areas. This application was also on the July 2nd APC agenda, and therefore the options for recommendation have been offered as you see in the report. The variance application does not vary use or density, and there would be minimal impact to neighboring properties, and so the application is also considered supportable. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Rice?
Thank you, Chair. Again, I'm going to be moving option A on this, but I did have one question for staff. With regards to the other zoning that we have, what is the setback that is on similar properties? I thought it was quite a bit less.
Thank you, through the chair. I don't have the zoning bylaw in front of me now, but could report back on that for you if you'd like.
I'm just wondering if this is a bylaw that eventually we would take a look at and amend the setbacks on those?
Through the chair, yes, this zoning bylaw is from 1991, so it is on deck for update in line with the updated OCP.
Thank you.
Director Mooney?
Thank you, Chair. I have one first question to staff, and then depending on their answer, I have a follow-up. So I'm curious if the property is on an SRD water system.
Again, I don't have the mapping system in front of me, so I could report back on that for you.
I can answer that. It is on the Campbell River water system.
Okay, thank you. Perfect. The reason I'm asking is because the property, according to the report, has a septic field, and current island health requirements are for a minimum of 0.5 of an acre or 0.2 of a hectare parcel for properties that are on a water supply system if they have ideal minimum native mineral soil depth. And this property is 0.18 of an acre, which is less than what Island Health requests or requires, I guess. And I am concerned that providing a variance permit would allow covering this small lot with more buildings, and there could be less space for a reserve septic solution should one be required. So question to staff would, I'm wondering about asking Island Health for their input on this. Is that something that staff could provide a perspective on? Is it something within the realm of reasonable to ask them if they have, like, would this be referred to them at some point later in the process, or would it do you have feedback from them already?
Through the chair, no, because the septic system is not part of this application, it wouldn't be appropriate to refer to Island Health at this time. They don't have the staff capacity to weigh in on applications that aren't impacting the service that they regulate. So typically, no, these would not be forwarded to Island Health. And in this case, the lot coverage is not being varied. It's not part of this variance request. So again, it's not something that is anticipated as a concern at this time.
On receipt? Or
good.
Director Rice?
Just a few comments. First of all, minimum lot size in Area D is 0.5, and that has been quite acceptable with Island Health. We've already approved how many lots that are less than that, and it's just a matter of doing if they were going to put in a septic field, of doing the actual assessments of the property. So if you read our OCP, it's 0.5. Anyways, I'm going to be moving option A.
On receipt then. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, that's carried. And Director Rice.
I'd like to move option A, that the committee recommend that the development variance permit DV 3D25 at 4228 Inquest Road, as presented in the staff report dated July 9th, 2025, be approved.
Do I have a seconder?
Second.
That's Director Benesh, I believe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None, that is carried. Number 3, Electoral Area C, Official Community Plan Project Update for receipt.
Move receipt.
Need a seconder?
Second.
And I believe Annie will speak to this, Mr. Chair.
Thank you to the committee through the chair. This report is to provide an update on the Area C OCP review project as we are continuing to work through phase 2, being the community engagement phase. This month, we're still continuing to schedule and hold focus groups with community organizations. We've now met with 12 community groups and have had a few more scheduled, but we anticipate there may be more groups that we don't hear from until potentially the end of the summer, since I know that there were some groups that had really limited availability during the summer months. So we'll be following up with some groups in the fall. We've also had a meeting with several Island Health Authority representatives, and we talked about OCP topics and their resources, such as the local area health profile and how the OCP might be informed by that. We're still preparing for an Outer Islands meeting sometime soon, which a date has yet to be determined. And we're still waiting for the final context summary as well to be ready to share. Lastly, we also recently wrapped up the Kids Art Contest, and we'll be sharing those on the website shortly. And thank you to all the young artists from Quadra and Reed Island who participated. And that's all from me. Thank you.
Director Mooney.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for the report. I'm excited to see the art. I have 3 questions. And you're talking about you've had 12 community group meetings, and you've got maybe 13 more invites out there. And I attended a Quadra Island Foundation event not long ago and learned that there, according to their research, are 84 different community groups on Quadra Island. And it seems to me like maybe meeting with the community groups is an important part of this OCP process. So I'm wondering if planning staff are interested in reaching out to the foundation for that list of groups, or if you'd like me to reach out and ask for that list of groups. I know that seems like usually you're more interested in maintaining that sort of line of conversation and communication yourself. So I'm just curious if you are aware of that or are interested in that.
I would certainly be interested in that, so I'll look forward to reaching out to the Quadra Foundation. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. And regarding the meeting on Reed Island that is in August, I heard from a community member who identified that the interest in an August meeting was to provide an opportunity for seasonal residents to weigh in. And that there are many year-round locals who are not available in August because they are away working in the tourism industry. Just as an example, last summer I was in Refuge Cove and I met somebody there who lives on Morel Island when they're not busy in the summer season. So I guess it's a two-part question. Are you planning on more than one meeting on the Outer Discovery Islands to ensure you hear from seasonal and year-round residents? And what sort of engagement is being planned for Refuge Cove residents?
Thank you for the question through the chair. So yes, obviously, we aren't going to capture every resident at every event. We don't expect to or plan to. So certainly, yes, this won't be the last engagement we have with Outer Islanders. We do hope that we catch the seasonal residents, and we will be planning future engagement to capture anyone who is missed during the summer. As for Refuge Cove, I believe Annie had said already here in the report, but there's a number of, we're looking into all the different ways that we can reach sort of outer islands and more remote residents. Some of that, of course, is happening virtually, but we are also looking at direct mail outs and some other ways. Those are more costly, but it's also fewer residents, so it's manageable. But that is multiple ways that we're looking into, for sure.
Okay, thank you. And I know, that, again, in Refuge Cove, I think there's a lot of people that are there for part of the year, not the full year. So thank you for that. It's great to know that that's on your radar. And my third question is, it appears from reading page 2 regarding phase 2, I might be misreading this, so this is just a question to you, is that engagement with key interest groups, does it form the bulk of the phase 2 community engagement? Because it kind of read to me like the key interest group and First Nation feedback is being used to develop draft content and policies and objectives, and that sharing maps and draft sections of the OCP with the community would be in phase 3. And I'm not sure if I'm reading that right or not.
Thank you through the chair. Certainly, the focus groups and First Nations are a large part of what we're doing right now, but it's not the only. I don't know if it's the bulk. We haven't broken it down by a percentage per se. What I would say is that, yes, focus groups and the community groups, that 84 number of community groups have a vast knowledge of the area, and so they do give us a really good starting point for what policies might make sense. That's not to say that we don't get that same feedback from the public, but that is part of why the focus groups are really heavy in the front. And then when we do go forward to the public, we find that we get better conversation and better input from the public when they have some meat to consider. It just becomes more real that way, and it shows that we have heard something already. So yes, following this engagement, and again, since a lot of residents are either seasonal or away in the summer, pushing that public engagement piece closer to the fall and the winter is trying to capture people when they are home. So yes, you will see more of the public element in the later phases.
Oh, in phase 3?
Yes, there will be some in phase 2. We already mentioned going out to Reed Island, so
Yeah.
it's not a hard line.
Okay.
But yes, you will see more public-facing engagement in phase 3. Yeah.
Okay, great. And I just have a final comment, and that was that the first bullet in phase 2 in the report says a variety of community consultation and engagement methods. And I'm wondering if it's possible to have that broken out a little more with more explanation in a future report. I'm just really frequently asked about the OCP project, and, you know, a question that I got asked last week is, how will agriculture be represented, and how and when will people that are interested in discussing agriculture have an opportunity to weigh in? And I, of course, there are other topics that people reach out to me about, like housing or water, public spaces, and I don't have a way to inform them that there will be a conversation about that. So I'm just wondering if it could be maybe broken out a little bit more so that people that can participate in the topical conversations that they're most passionate about.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Thanks.
Anything further? On receipt then, call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Number 4, Kwasiaski Cove, opportunities for service integration for receipt.
Move receipt.
Second.
And I believe Sheena will speak to this.
Thank you. Through to the chair. This has been a really interesting one, and one where I'm happy to be in my seat and not in yours, because we've got a pretty significant decision to consider. So back in September of August of 2024, there was a request made to send a thoughtful inquiry to the Wee Kai First Nation to see if there was any interest in exploring joint service integration with either water or sewer. That letter was sent, and we had a really positive response, and have had 4 staff-to-staff meetings since then to discuss the opportunities and set a little bit of framework for how we might move forward if it is the will of the board and this committee. It became very apparent early on in the conversations that there was a lot more opportunity around wastewater. This is largely centered around the fact that the nation is already considering improvements to their sewage lagoon, which is at the bottom of an unstable slope and not necessarily sized to serve their full build-out vision of their lands, which also aligns with our urgency around the condition of our current wastewater treatment plant, which, as we have stated in several reports, and again in this one, is noted to be at the end of its life. It is important to point out that in 2018, this idea was very lightly explored, and there was a high-level desktop study done that compared the costs of building a standalone wastewater treatment plant or conveying the sewage to the current lagoon, and it was more costly to provide that conveyance infrastructure. So there's quite a bit of linear pipe that needs to go in the ground, as well as likely a pump station or lift station or two to get it over some of the grades that stand between our lands and theirs. So with that in mind, considering we're looking at a similar, possibly more costly option, but it does come with some benefits in that there is difficulty at times retaining operations or operational staff for both facilities, just being a small island and not having a ton of people with the necessary expertise. There's also efficiencies in having a joint system, fewer outfalls, fewer parts to break down if it's only one system instead of 2. The First Nations do have access to other grant funding programs also that we're not available to get funding through, and collaborative applications are often viewed more favorably. That said, the nation is not at the same critical turning point with their infrastructure as we are, and while they are interested in this and had already taken steps, timelines, we will have very limited control or to drive those timelines if the nation deprioritizes this or for whatever reason just does not put their priority effort on this. Well, I think it is a great solution and comes with a lot of potential benefits as well as strengthening relations between the SRD and the Wee Kai. There is a lack of autonomy in joining into a partnership. On the flip side, the wastewater treatment plant, we already anticipate that the design fees alone will probably exceed what we have already earmarked, and we don't know what the ultimate cost of the facility will be. As part of that design is building out the system. The past reports that we've had on that had 3 options and rough cost estimates for each of those options, but once we get down on the ground and do all of the necessary site features that identify all of the constraints and where our buildable area is, that will really indicate which system we're able to go with. So we cannot really predict what those costs will be. Additionally, upgrading the system will upgrade our discharge requirements, which may further bring additional costs to the system to improve the quality of the effluent that is discharged into through our outfall in Kwathiaski Cove. So there's lots of information in this report. I'm happy to ask any questions or answer any questions, but essentially we've presented 3 options. One is continue pursuing the service integration option, primarily for sewer. We can touch on water as it becomes more of a high-level priority for the nation, but there isn't really a lot there for them. So we really haven't focused on that. So for wastewater, it's pursuing the joint service initiative, which will come with cost to the SRD. We would be responsible for all of the design and construction of any of that conveyance infrastructure. So that may or may not be covered under the grant, but as noted in that 2018 report from Coors, was estimated at $2 million in 2018 dollars. So no matter what, the system is going to need to have some sort of funding that will need to be funded either by grants from other levels of government or by the users themselves, which would be a pretty significant burden. So in the fact that both options aren't cheap, both options come with risks, both options come with timelines that are uncertain, in that building the capital required to replace the wastewater treatment plant through user fees is unlikely a feasible option just due to the length of time or value of what those fees would need to be. And then we would be basically at the mercy of grants ourselves if we went independent. So constraints, opportunities, but over to you for your opinion on what is the best course of action to ensure that this community continues to have reliable sewer infrastructure. Thank you.
Directors? Director Mooney?
Thank you, Chair. And really thank you for the report and also including the letter, which sparked the conversations with the Weewakai Nation. It was really great to see that. And I'm happy to learn that the conversations are focused on wastewater treatment because that is definitely the most pressing need for Kwathiaski Cove residents, for sure. A question to staff. Somewhere in this report, it talks about an allocation of $200,000, which was made of Growing Communities funding to explore test locations and a water supply in the cove. Could that fund be reallocated by the board toward wastewater feasibility?
So if I can, Mr. Chair, it's my intention either in August or worst case scenario to bring the allocation of that Growing Communities back. We've had some projects in there that have stalled, some may not happen, some may have costs that we didn't use up all the funds. So I think what the director is referring to is some of the water allocation that might be better used, allocated to the sewer, and that's my intention. So I think that's a long version of saying there's some funds in there, and I think they might be better served reallocating them from water to sewer, and I'll bring that to the board in August or September. That's my intention.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So thank you for that, Mr. Leach. It is a complicated question that you pose with this report. And I think when I read it over multiple times and looked at the three options that were there, I felt like maybe modifying option one was the best way to go forward because I'm interested in maybe like a timeline or some milestones being included in the report as a way to ensure that we are moving forward on this critical project. And also knowing that sometimes First Nations have capacity limitations, I want to be sure that we are not asking them to move it forward, but rather that we were working together and using the funds that we have access to move forward with Cape Munch Village and the Weewakai Nation, and that our staff is also involved. So I will be moving and modified option one, but I just had one question for you, Ms. Fisher. And that is, you mentioned conveyance infrastructure, but you also mentioned that this current sewage lagoon at the Weewakai Nation is not in the best location due to being at the bottom of an unstable slope. So I guess maybe you're not aware yet, or no, I'm just curious if we're thinking that we're going to be conveying things in that direction or maybe conveying them up to where our current site already is.
Thank you. Early conversations on that do indicate that the new wastewater treatment plant would be within the Weewakai lands. Part of that is the property that we own on Green Road has a wetland on it, and we're actually quite constrained from spatially. I don't think we would be able to house a plant that was large enough for both. And as the nation already had a project in place to try to identify a location for their new wastewater treatment plant facility and have grant funding through Indigenous Services Canada for that, it does really seem best to continue along that path.
Okay, well, that's extra information, so I really appreciate that. And Chair, following any other further questions, I have a modified motion to make. Thanks.
Okay. Anything further, directors? On receipt, then I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried. And your motion, Director Mooney.
I thank you, Chair. And I sent it to Betty, and she has it up there on the screen. I'll move that staff continue to work with the Weewakai Nation to pursue wastewater service integration as the primary servicing direction for Kwathiaski Cove, with additional funding needs and next steps to be brought forward in a future report, and that to ensure we are moving forward in a reasonable way, the report includes timeline milestones and SRD shouldering responsibility for some of the work.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None, that's carried. Number 5, engineering project update for receipt.
Move receipt.
And I believe Sheena will just continue on.
Thank you through the chair to the directors. So 2025 is a busy year for us. We've got lots on the go, and I'm happy to be able to have this opportunity to provide you an update in this format instead of writing 15 individual reports. So I do appreciate this opportunity. So we'll just go in alphabetical order. So starting with Electoral Area A, one of our smallest portfolios for engineering. We have already started the Walter Island Water System Study using the $70,000 grant we received from the Drift Grant. We are planning engagement with the KCFN and the Cayucit Community Association for later in the summer. So hoping to make some progress there. Additionally, the Sayward Valley Solid Waste Service, and I'll mention as well, the Cortez Island Solid Waste Service are due to have a new RFP released to secure a new contractor for the 2026 season. Both of those will be done later on in the year. Moving on to Area B, or perhaps I'll stop there. Are there any questions for any of the Electoral Area A reports?
Area A is fine, thank you.
Thank you. Moving to Area B, the Cortez Island Septic Study Phase 2. I was hoping to have had this before you already. Our consultant has had some delays in submitting the final report, and I actually sent back, he did provide a version of the report, which I sent back. It was missing a few pieces of information. Just a heads up that Silvis Environmental was not willing to take on Phase 2. They no longer had the internal resources who are suitable to provide this level of work, so they referred me to a consultant, another consultant who is very familiar with composting, and that's who we're working with right now. He has promised me the report by the end of the week. I'm hopeful and hope to have the report for the August ISC in front of you. I already mentioned the status of the Cortez Island Solid Waste Service, RFP drafting later this year. There's a couple other initiatives on Cortez regarding the solid waste that we've just sort of been in a holding pattern on. The first is the commercial waste bylaws and rates update. In case this is not fresh in your memory, there is a fee schedule for some of the commercial customers on Cortez who have a dedicated user fee prescribed to them. It's not based on volume. It's probably at one point calculated based on volume, but it is a set rate, and it was set sometime in the 90s, so may no longer reflect their current usage. We also have one of those customers, the government docks, who has pulled out and has refused to pay their fee because they no longer provide solid waste disposal services at their facility. So the jurisdictional issues that are noted in this report are that bylaw was set by Comox, the Strathcona Comox Regional District, when it was in existence. And because Comox Strathcona Waste Management is responsible for setting fees, we do have legal opinion that it is their mandate to update these as well. They are the ones receiving the waste from these commercial customers, so it's quite difficult for us to even provide volumes and estimate sort of the disposal cost for that. CSWM does not agree, so we're sort of staring at each other across the table, not really going anywhere with that. Falling out of that, there was some discussion and some requests from the community to instigate a pilot for waste collection at the government docks, as people are still leaving waste there, and it has essentially fallen on volunteers to clean up. Due to the same jurisdiction and funding issues, in that do we want the residents of Cortez to pay for the waste disposal of mostly tourists coming through the area? It's a complicated one to answer, so we just have not been focusing a lot of priority on that. So maybe I'll pause there and see if there's any questions or comments on the Electoral Area C initiatives. B.
Director Nash?
Yeah, so it's great that the septic study is close to complete. Looking forward to seeing that and bring it back to the community. When you're saying a new contract or new contractor for the curbside collection, I assume that this is just like every 5 years we put out an RFP and often the current contractor applies. This is not to signify the end of the current contractor, is that right?
That's correct. It just signifies the end of our contract with the current contractor, and it'll be up to the results of the RFP who the new contractor is, if it's the same as current or not.
Yeah, thank you. And then the solid waste bylaws. Yeah, I think it is a big issue. There's people using, the dumping waste and not paying their fair share for it. I'm, looking for some advice here. What should I be doing here? Should I make a motion at the CSWM board to have this move forward? Who actually sets those rates? Like, who has control over the rates?
Yeah, if I can, Mr. Chair, I would encourage you to make a motion at the CSWM because, again, we've got this standoff with the SRD or the CVRD, that it's their jurisdiction. It's certainly not ours. We got a legal opinion on it. I don't know why they're really hesitant to move forward with it. I don't think it's that big a deal, and I think it would be a good idea if you brought up a motion for them to address it.
Great, I'll do that then. Thank you. And the pilot for the waste collection, has there been communication with the Harbor Authority of Cortes Island? I know, like the last time we spoke about this, there was how they were doing it before is they basically had a box and people paid a fee. And my thoughts were, is there a way to sort of have tourists pay for it, but the collection be part of something that we can be a part of? Just wondering I see it's on hold, but what conversations have happened with the Harbor Authority?
I have not personally had any conversations with the Harbor Authority. My understanding is that they have been quite blunt with finance, that they will not be paying any bills. They no longer provide solid waste collection services at their facilities.
Okay, so they don't have any interest in figuring out a solution then either?
To my knowledge, no. I believe they're just pulling out of offering this service altogether.
Okay, thank you. And then I'm wondering a couple other projects that aren't listed here. One is the new parking lot at Hanks Beach Park. Is that part of engineering or is that part of parks?
That is part of community services.
Oh, sorry. I think it was part of parks. So we just split the engineering because I think we brought it at the last meeting. We ran out of time, and so we just took out the engineering from the parks that were presented.
Okay, and also with the pit toilets in Carrington Bay as well.
Also a parks initiative.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks very much.
Director Mooney.
I just had a question about the commercial solid waste piece that we were just discussing about with Area B. Would it be beneficial if we had a report about the issues or the jurisdictional issues that from engineering that we could then, that Director Vanesh could actually forward to CSWM, so it would provide a sort of an SRD perspective on the issue before we take it to CSWM?
Mr. Chair, if I can, I think that's a good idea. I would be shocked if we don't already have one or multiple, so we'll do some research and see what's out there, and happy to provide that to Director Vanesh as some backup for a motion.
Great. Do you want to make a motion on that?
No, that's all good.
Okay.
Okay, if nothing else for Area B, I'll move on to Area C. So the Transport Canada divested wharves, I think we're all quite familiar with that. The contract has been issued, the materials have been purchased, and we're waiting on the contractor's environmental consultant to provide their construction management plans. We're still waiting on the schedule, but last we spoke to Pacific Industrial Marine, they were thinking it was going to look a little bit like more fall, winter 2025. However, they are at liberty to schedule those works as long as it is within the contract guidelines, which stipulates that it must be completed by the end of March 2026. So we should see all three facilities completed under that time. Once complete, we will be divesting the Port Neville Wharf to the Coetzee First Nation. We were not able to provide clear timelines on that until we have the construction schedule and are confident that work will proceed on schedule, but it will be done no later than shortly after March 2026, should the construction drag to that extent. We just spoke about the Q Cove service integration. We just spoke about the Kwathiaski Cove new wastewater treatment plant design as in consort with that. And then the last on this list was the feasibility study for solid waste services, which was presented at the June board, and the resolution was to wait 8 months and follow up. So we will be following up in February of 2026. Any questions about Area C initiatives?
Director Mooney.
I have a question, thank you. And I want to say thank you for the report, and it was really nice to see the previous year's reports appended to this one, so it was easy to see where we've come from and all the projects that have been accomplished. Just a couple of quick things. The report does say that we're working with We By Come. And maybe that could be changed to say Weebukai. I don't know if it's too late to update that to reflect which nation we are working with. And then my question is that the Surge Narrows Revitalization Project is not listed here. And I'm wondering if any of the Surge Narrows Revitalization Project falls within the SRD engineering department.
It does not. That is firmly a community services project, but as there is some benefit to the information that we will gather when we go in and do, for example, our pile driving, we will be sharing information with that project as it may inform some of their design criteria, but it is not an engineering project, no.
Okay, and my follow-up to that is that I'm asking because I think, as you're saying, that you're going to likely learn some things, but further than that, there's potential efficiencies that could be gained and learning which could be transferred if the same people are at the helm of the revitalization project and the wharves project. And I imagine that, for instance, that there is already learning which has been happening as a result of the Hoskin Landing Wharf replacement recently. And having that learning incorporated by having the same staff involved would seem sensible to me, but maybe there's a way of just sort of transferring that knowledge over to the planning staff so that we don't end up with the same issues.
Thank you. Through the chair. While we do have clear lines of responsibility, whose project is whose project is whose, we do support each other and assist each other as needed. So the parks technician has been very actively involved in the Transport Canada Wharf project. He was involved before I got here and has sort of followed it along. As well, considering all of the Surge Narrows and owned by Wharf will be moved into the parks portfolio, I agree that it is essential that parks is aware of what is happening and they will be brought along and we're sharing resources. We also have a similar engineering team, so the engineering consultants that are going to help us through construction will also be hearing firsthand and dealing with firsthand what comes up in ours and can also transfer that knowledge into their contract with the community services. So I guess that's a long way of saying that we are collaborating extensively on this.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Okay, if that's it for Area C, we'll move on to Area D. So the big project happening out there right now is the universal water meters. I've broken this down into two steps. One is the water meter installation and the bylaw update. So currently we have approximately 500 water meters in the ground and have paid roughly $1.3 million to the contractor. This includes approximately $1,500 extra a month for the contractor to locate those unfound services. So they have actually been able to find and meter several is an understatement, many of the properties whose service locations we were not able to identify last year. We have allowed EDGIT up to an hour per unfound location to do their best to find the services, whereas the teams that went out last year had roughly 10 minutes. So that is going quite well. Using the data that we have so far, we project that they will likely be able to meter around 1,000 properties under this model where we pay a little bit of extra labor time for them to find it. As a refresher, the phase one contract stipulated it was for 852 properties, but it did have a 20% allowance in either direction. So we are within sort of that 20% allowance, which means that EDGIT will honor their unit pricing for the materials needed for those installations. So it is a pretty good value. They have been an excellent contractor to work with and have said that they're also quite pleased with the relationships both with the SRD and our contract admin, Coors Engineering, and have verbally stated that they would be willing to hold their pricing for the phase two contract, which is great, where we're potentially going to be a year apart, so them not escalating those costs could be very, very beneficial to us. I am hoping to bring back something to you in August to give you a better idea of what those costs are. It's just difficult to come up with anything accurate when we don't know how many services are going to be in that pot. So we're using projections based on where we are today. We do have, EDGIT has outlined what their plan would be. They do want to take on that phase two work, as I mentioned, and have stated that they would hold their materials costs. And so the approach would be to use ground penetrating radar. If that fails to locate the service, it would be an excavator to lightly scrape the surface in the area where we anticipate the water meter would be. And then if that doesn't work, it would be hiring a hydrovac to essentially start from one end of the property line to the other until you find the pipe. So again, it's hard to put a number on that because we don't know how many properties will need to go through all three phases. You do need to fiscally, it makes sense to start with the ground penetrating radar and then move to the more invasive measures rather than starting with hydrovacing. So we're just sort of trying to get a little bit more firm data before we put numbers in front of you. But ultimately, I want to say the project is going very well. Edgett is well on track. We've had probably half a dozen phone calls of people calling to tell us they think Edgett did a great job, did great service, great restoration. I've had more, your contractor did a great job, than I'm upset calls. I don't know if that is wildly irregular. So that is going very well. So that was the first two items. That's a big one, so maybe I'll pause there if there are any other questions about water metering. No. Okay. So the Area D bulk water contract renewal, again, we reviewed that in June. Just a reminder, as our CAO stated, this report was originally on the June agenda, which is why we've got some things sort of in the past coming up here. Stormwater Management Study Phase 2, we are working on drafting that RFP. The Oyster River Exchange, or the Transit Exchange upgrade at Oyster River, which is in collaboration with BC Transit, CVRD, and the Ministry of Transportation and Transit, which is improving the transit exchange between the CVRD and the Campbell River system, right in front of that Oyster River commercial area. BC Transit has come up with a couple of concept plans. The Ministry of Transportation wasn't very happy with with their first draft, and so they're revising that. They have given me their commitment that they will engage with the local business owners. There's not a lot of communication coming out of this project, so I'm not aware if that has happened or not yet, but they did commit to coming back with the additional designs and again to having those consultations, and I did request that they ensure the director is invited when they provide that information to the business owners. Traffic study along Highway 19A. This has been on our agenda for quite some time. The ministry committed to it long ago and have stopped replying to my emails requesting status updates. Additional bus shelters. So we were hoping to fund most of this out of a minor betterments grant, which also comes back to the Ministry of Transportation, and they have thrown us a bit of a curveball saying that we need to commit to providing road maintenance fronting those bus stops, which includes snow plowing and street sweeping and the like. So that was not brought forward when we did the other transit stops, and is not typical. The City of Campbell River, who is our partner in this and is really leading as they deliver the transit service, agree and have authored a letter that they hope to send to the ministry to get clarity on what these maintenance requirements are and whether or not they can be waived, as the City of Campbell River isn't going to rush down to these bus stops when they've got their entire city to clear of snow. I have requested estimates from the City of Campbell River to what those maintenance costs would be, so that if we receive feedback from the Ministry of Transportation that access to this grant is contingent, or their support of our permit applications, as these shelters are within their road allowance, are contingent on us providing that maintenance, we'll know what that cost is. So those are still sitting with the city for issuing to us, and we will just have to go from there.
Thank you for that. I do have a couple of questions. The first question that I had was, with regards to the traffic study, I know that this has been dragged on for quite some time. We've had 3 fatalities on that stretch of road this year alone. And I've sent correspondence, CC'd the MLA. They've had no response. Now that we're into our summer, we have the beach access that's at Story Beach. Proper signage, no left turns. Almost daily now, people are doing left-hand turns into the parking lots. Again, this is in the area where there was a very serious motorcycle accident. About 3 years ago, there was a fatality with that. So again, we're not seeing a whole lot of movement on this. On a good note, I have seen more of a police presence in terms of speeders. But further up where the 4 lanes are, certainly no police presence around where the beaches are, which is the big problem. And if we really wanted to pick a bone with Modi at this point in time, the Oyster Bay Rest Stop now has people that are staying in their RVs permanently. They've been there for a month. And again, how do we get traction on all of this stuff and actually start seeing some changes. The big one with the traffic study is, again, 3 fatalities this year alone, and I think that's quite high. What can we do? Looking for feedback.
If I can, Mr. Chair, so the director will remember, like, we actually met with highways staff 2-3 years ago. We had funding to do this, and they said, no, we got the money, we'll take care of it. So like, this is fantastic. And they've done nothing with it when we were willing to do it and fund it. So I would suggest a couple things that we can write a letter from the board saying, hey, what's going on with this? We met, we offered money, you said you had it, this was years ago, nothing's happening. And also maybe add it to a UBCM topic list to meet with the staff and say, what's going on with this thing? We were going to fund and support it. You guys took charge of it. You haven't done anything in 3 years.
Do you want a motion to that effect, by the way?
Yeah.
Or no?
No, we got a UBCM topic later on here, but
Well, just to add on to that, last year I reached out to Modi to try and find out what are all the hurdles to get a digital speed sign for the summertime. And again, I can't believe the red tape that they put in this. There's permits, then you have to rent the appropriate digital sign and lock it down, and then you have to get a sponsor like ICBC to actually sponsor the sign. And I couldn't get anybody to give me any appropriate feedback. So, I mean, again, very frustrating to try and deal with this stretch of highway that is increasingly getting worse in the summertime.
and I have 2 of them in my neighborhood.
I can't get one.
Yeah, thank you. I can assure you that my emails are increasingly stronger worded, and I append all of the previous correspondence. So there is now about 15 emails appended to each email that I send. So it is, I can empathize with the frustration there. Still in the realm of transportation and transit.
Just one moment, if you
please,
would.
yeah.
Director Vinesh has a question here.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just want to point out, in my opinion, this is a cultural issue at Ministry of Transportation. Like almost every single interaction I've had with them on Cortez roads and issues affecting my area, just they'll say they do one thing and then nothing happens. So there's a real cultural problem at the Ministry of Transportation around following through on what they say they're going to do, and also just making it easier to get things done. So I would certainly support a ministry meeting at UBCM and to address not only the challenges that Director Rice is having, the 3 deaths should be a wake-up call, but there needs to be a shake-up there.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I completely agree, and I think all the directors that are new this term have experienced the same thing, and it's similar to what we experienced with highways on a number of issues.
Go ahead.
Other than that, thank you for the report. Lots of details. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, we're not done. So the Transportation Master Services Agreement with the City of Campbell River, this is what generates the bill that we pay every year for transit services. There hasn't been an update to that agreement in possibly a decade. It has been on our to-do list and also on the city's to-do list, but there's a lack of resources at the city right now to move that forward. So just sort of in a holding pattern there. The BC Transit has provided a template for sort of shared service agreements, so at least we've got something to work on. That looks quite a bit different than what we had, so we'll just have to see where that goes once the city has assigned resources to support us with that. The Area D Water System Integration Study. So this was, I don't recall exactly how this came about, but it was discussion around integrating the Northern Area D system with Black Creek Oyster Bay. We have not really put a lot of effort into that, and I would really like some feedback on what the intent was there and if there is something we can do to support that.
We can remove that item.
Thank you. The next thing on the item is the Oyster River Bank inspection. So this was a project that we did in collaboration with the planning project to do the floodplain mapping. We were able to get a pretty good deal on their consultants, and they were just inspecting the historic riverbank stabilization features that are along the Oyster River that date back 30 years. We are anticipating that report to be submitted later this month and hoping to put it on the August agenda. Area D street lighting service. If you recall, there are a couple of street lights on Glenmore Road, right around that commercial area, that are actually not within any of our service areas. They are being billed to the SRD, and so I have been hoping to sort of sort that out, but I'm still waiting on some feedback from Hydro. And there are some complexities around identifying what the service area to fund those lights might be. It is a really minimal cost, so it just hasn't raised in priority, but sorting it out is far more complicated than it might sound. So hoping to put some more resources towards that later this year. Water pressure improvements, alternative option study. We haven't made a lot of progress on that either. I did do a little bit of research into what individual booster pumps might be. Our current bylaw actually prohibits that equipment. There are expensive options, such as the pump station, which has already gone through sort of all the way to procurement and then went well over budget. There are other things such as looping the system that we could do. We have just really been focusing on the water meter project. And just this is a fairly expensive problem to fix. So waiting until we can really dedicate some time to it and address it. Similarly, the water main replacements, we do have a budget line item for this, but unfortunately, even though it's $1 million, it is pennies in actually making major improvements to the system or replacing significant portions of the pipe. And additionally, the universal water metering project has the potential to give us a lot more information on where those leaks are, which might prioritize which sections that we replace. As with any construction project, mobilization is one of the major costs. So scoping something so we're not just replacing 600 meters here or 100 meters there we'll get a lot more bang for our buck. So we're hoping to get a little bit more information about what the highest priority areas are and put together a bit of a package so we're getting some efficiency out of our funding there. Which brings us to the end of the engineering update. So any other questions?
That's right.
Just one more question with regards to BC Hydro. The lighting on Glenmore Road, I thought was going to coincide with the work that BC Transit and MOT is doing. Is that correct?
Those lights are needed, they want those areas to be well lit. They're going to be providing additional pedestrian corridors. So that's sort of another reason why we may be able to roll that in. I have not received specific input or feedback that those lights would then fall under the transit services costs, as they are street lights that per BC Hydro are installed at the request of the district who wants them. So again, we don't really know how they got there, how they got on our invoices, and not a lot of information coming out of Hydro to provide that history.
And what about a charging station? I don't see that on the report. We were looking at an EV charging station, either to be located on Glenmore where Discovery Mall is, or perhaps a little further down the road?
I don't recall that coming to engineering. Okay. We don't own that property, so it would be interesting for us to operate a charging station on somebody else's property.
And initially, the conversation went that perhaps maybe we could get funding to put it in the SRD park that's down on Regent.
Yeah, we can certainly explore that. Yeah, there's opportunities that Hydro is the one who's going to fund these things, so we give them opportunities, and land and location's a good one for them. So we'll explore some Area D opportunities for that. I know there's they've installed one at Shelter Point Farm. I believe at the mall there's one.
The one at Shelter Point is, I believe, just for Teslas.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
So absolutely, we'll reach out. It's an ongoing program with BC Hydro, and we can see if they have any interest in opportunities that we have throughout SRD.
Thank you.
If I may, we did discuss, if I recall, the former Strategic Initiatives Manager did look into this, and Hydro was not interested in the Oyster River Rest area, which I know is not the park that you're talking about, but they weren't interested in that location. And the current program has a minimum of 8 charging stations to it that they'll fund. So they're not currently offering to cover smaller installations. So if 8 chargers sounds good to you, then I can certainly share that information with parks, as if it is within a park, it would be a parks project as well.
Yeah, there'd be no wait, that's for sure. Okay, Director Mooney.
Thank you, Chair. I just had a question about the charging stations, because I feel like I recall quite some time ago now, there was an opportunity and maybe we were applying for funding for rural charging stations. There was something that came through. So maybe that was unsuccessful, or is there any corporate memory on that?
Well, how it works, as I understand it, certainly with the BC Hydro, because the other, I can't think of the name of the other charging company, but with BC Hydro is that you provide space and opportunity. Like, we have no investment in it, so we say, hey, it'd be great to have one here. We can provide opportunity here, there, and the other, and they decide whether they're going to put it there. I don't think there's a business model for the other group, but we continually offer locations and suggestions and ideas for hydro to try and get them interested. As Sheena said, there's 8 spots, so they need to find a location where they feel it's. Let me say this: we've offered a lot more locations than they've bid on. So they're the ones that are going to decide if they're going to invest, and we provide suggestions for areas, but they may look at it and say, we don't think that's good value, putting 8 charging stations in, this area, and so they don't do it. Because we're not going to, or this board hasn't committed to investing, it's not a financially viable business model to put the capital in and try and recoup these funds. So the only projects we've pursued is the ones that were 100% supported by the BC Hydro or the other charging group. And we'll provide, maintain the spots and the access to them. But so, we're continually offering, and any suggestions you have, we can put them forward to Hydro and see if they can bite on them.
Right, call a question on receipt of the engineering report. All those in favor? And that is unanimous and carried. Item number 6, Electoral Area D Fire Protection Service for receipt.
Move receipt.
Second.
Anything from staff?
Unless Tom is going to speak to this.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as noted in the report, there are a few irons in the fire regarding the Area D fire protection. I believe that ultimately, whatever the board decides to do, we may find it somewhat frustrated by the fact that this is a fairly old service, function, I should say, under letters patent. So what we are suggesting is that we could use the time to convert it to a service, which would allow the board to be a little more nimble when it comes to whatever they decide is appropriate for future changes with the service. And that's the intent, anyways, is to basically take the slack time we have right now and use it to convert the service to something that is a little more modern than 30-year-old, 40-year-old, whatever function under letters patent.
And I don't believe, Mr. Chair, there's any financial implications to this.
Anything from directors? Seeing none. All those in favor of receipt? That's unanimous and carried. Director Rice motion.
I'd like to move item B, that the committee recommend that the Electoral Area D fire protection function be converted to a service to be exercised under the authority of an existing bylaw.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? That's unanimous and carried. Number 7, 2025 UBCM Convention, Provincial Government Staff Meetings for receipt.
Move receipt.
Second.
So if I may, Mr. Chair, this just follows the guidelines of the province in terms of setting up the meetings for UBCM. This is the staff meetings, the ministerial staff meetings that we're looking for. So similarly with the board, we're just looking for any ideas and input that directors may have. We can, create a narrative based on some of the conversation, the history we have, reports, so on and so forth. And my intent is that we'll take these, and if directors have ideas, after today in the next, couple weeks, that's fine too. Send them on into staff, and we'll compile a report for the August East meeting on subject matter, give you an idea of our backgrounder, let you comment, edit on that, and then make those submissions for you by the late August deadline. So this is just to initiate the conversation and see if we can get any ideas from directors. Again, we'll provide suggestions at the next East meeting, but this just gives you an opportunity to kind of think of what you may want to meet with the provincial staff are as well. If you want the meeting and you just want to attend on your own, that's fine too. Just we can organize and set those up.
Anything from directors? Director Winnie?
Thanks, Chair. Well, I think it's pretty clear that we need to meet with Ministry of Transportation around issues for Director Rice, and I second sort of what Director Vanesh said earlier about hearing something from staff and then not having any follow-through on the ground. So I would be interested in I think that would be a great topic. I think that says we can only get 20 minutes with them as opposed to 30 minutes with other staff. It must mean they're very busy fielding directors. And I would really like to, and I'm not sure, maybe, and Edith isn't here, so I can't be sure about this, but we applied for WildSafe funding this year, and it didn't go through for areas B and C. And I would really like to be able to advocate with the appropriate ministry, if that's Waterlands and Resource Stewardship or whichever, for that funding. It's really important for our rural communities.
Anything further? On receipt?
I've got one.
Oh, Director Vanesh?
I've got it. Thank you, Chair. Just a question for Mr. Leach around, hang on, just getting back, looking through the report here. The connectivity, what's the branch here?
Citizen Services?
Yeah, Citizen Services. I'm wondering if it's worth having a meeting with Citizen Services around the last mile funding for rural communities at the SRD.
Yeah, we'll have that. So I have that on the minister meeting, and we'll include it as well on the staff meetings, because that's an ability for us to look at our individual areas a little closer with the staff. So yeah, I'll put that on.
Thank you. And then specifically on housing, on the housing needs report that we put in, I know we've got something lined up with the minister, but is that more of a staff issue around the formula for creating the housing needs that we sent into them, how wrong that was?
I think they're both good. The tricky thing here is that you make your meetings with the ministers, you don't know until early September, and they don't want you to duplicate the meetings with staff, but the deadline for that is late August. So you don't know if you got them, and then if you do, it's too late. And then what you're saddled with is at UBCM trying to organize these meetings at the booths or wherever they're set up, and you're trying to find some openings there. So I would personally duplicate. If we want to talk about housing, we'll definitely put a housing topic on there. And, if you can provide us with some specific background that you'd like to chat about, we'll include a backgrounder, find the necessary, staff, and we'll put that on the list.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I was going to say that I would be also interested in housing, and I could give you some background on that. And same with Indigenous relations and reconciliation. And I'm wondering if we could make any progress with a meeting with the Minister of Infrastructure.
So I think infrastructure is municipal affairs. What were you thinking of specifically? Water, sewer?
Well, eventually, I mean, if we listen to what's coming from the federal government, they want to build. At some point, whether it be provincial or federal, when are they going to start providing grants for infrastructure like water, sewer?
Okay, good, yep.
Okay then, call the question on receipt. All those in favor? That's unanimous and carried.
And so if I may, Mr. Chair, if you think of other items or topics, by all means, over the next, few weeks, send them on in and we'll start, compiling a report. And then at our August meeting, another opportunity for discussion, and we'll tie a bow around it and then submit those.
Great.
Number 8, multi-use sport court update for receipt.
Move receipt.
Second.
And I believe Meredith will speak to this.
Thank you through the chair. So we have a request before us from the Southern Cortez Community Association and Cortez Island Pickleball Society that the regional district provide $100,000 in community works or gas tax funds to support the construction of a multi-use sport court on lands owned by the Southern Cortez Community Association and fund ongoing maintenance and operations. Staff were tasked with looking into this further and working with those two organizations on developing a subsequent lease agreement. So this report basically goes over the current status of what we know and some of the outstanding questions. So we have had those further conversations. One high-level thing to say is, of course, the original proposal was a 60 by 60-foot court that has since been expanded to now be a 60 by 100-foot court to accommodate community interest in 3 pickleball courts, a tennis court, and a full basketball court. So that does also have implications for the budget. So there's kind of 6 main questions that center around this project. The first is whether it's eligible for the UBCM gas tax. There's a few things that would hinge on. It does require that the SRD board assert that this would not, that would be part of the SRD's infrastructure deficit. To do that, it has to be compliant with the UBCM gas tax categories, which it is under the sport infrastructure and recreational infrastructure categories. It must be included in the SRD capital plans, which it is not currently. It must be included in SRD asset management planning, which is not currently. And as the SRD would not own the asset, the project must not take priority over investment in SRD-owned infrastructure. So that would be an assertion of the board through a formal motion that all of those criteria had been met. Additionally, we have to verify recipient eligibility. All of the parties involved here would be eligible, so that criterion is met. And as noted above, the category eligibility criterion has been met. Lastly, under the UBCM requirements, you have to show a community benefit, both through public use and public benefit. Both of those criterions have been met, as they have confirmed that the courts would be open and available to the general public and not requiring a membership, and also that there is a sizable interest in the community to use the courts. The current usage is, of course, less than 10% of the Cortez population, but if courts were available, then that would probably be higher. Aside from eligibility for the gas tax, the budget itself has some outstanding questions. The provisional budget that was provided to the board was based on the smaller court size, so we do know that those costs will increase over what was previously provided. They have broken the project into 2 phases, and it's dependent on successful application to public grant funds, including the $100,000 in community works from the SRD, but additional grant funding as well as $65,200 in cash and in-kind donations from the community, of which about $14,000 has been received to date. Those cost estimates provided by the SCCA have not been verified. They have requested quotes from contractors, but those quotes haven't been received at this time. So that is a significant risk that we flag, is that the provisional budget at this point is highly conceptual. We would consider them Class D estimates. And the project funding itself is somewhat precarious in that it does rely on a significant amount of community fundraising, about $50,000 left to raise, which for a community of about 1,000 is significant. And also knowing that aside from the gas tax funds from the SRD, additional grant funding is being sought. So based on that, staff are recommending that a minimum 20% contingency fund be added to the budget to accommodate potential cost escalations and overruns during construction, as well as a minimum of $20,000 for design and construction supervision. That's through engineered oversight. These amendments would add about $65,000 to the provisional budget. And additionally, we recommend that the award of gas tax funding be dependent on the successful acquisition of full project funds, both construction and operating, to ensure project success. On the operating side of the budget, support of the development of the asset triggers the need to also allocate funding within the Area B Parks budget for ongoing operations and maintenance. Hard service courts are low maintenance in general, but they do, of course, require resurfacing periodically and replacement eventually. The SCCA estimates that the work will be required on a 5-year basis at a cost of $35,500. They've requested an annual increase to the SCCA budget of $15,000. That's $7,500 for annual maintenance and $7,500 for annual reserve contribution to support the 5-year resurfacing. Additionally, the court would need to be amortized as part of the SRD's asset management plan to support the eventual replacement. There's also some challenges with the zoning based on the site plan previously provided to the board, which again was based on the smaller court size. The existing configuration would encroach within the required 4.5 meter setback from the rear property line, which would trigger the need for a development variance permit. From an asset management perspective, the Community Works Fund, of course, requires that the project be included within our asset management planning, so that would need to take place. And lastly, just noting some reporting requirements that projects receiving more than $25,000 in funding must complete annual reporting on the geolocation of the asset, which wouldn't change annually, so that's not a terribly huge thing, but as well as the population directly served by the project, First Nations population directly served by the project, some output metric like the number of courts built, and an outcome metric like the actual usage of those courts. And that would be a burden that would apply to the community associations. That would be kind of the third-party recipient. So in summary, we would say this project is generally supportable and eligible for gas tax funding, provided that the terms noted above could be met, that the budget is verified and augmented to include contingency funding and professional oversight, and that full project funds are attained, and that a development variance permit is approved. Thank you.
Director Vanish.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, staff, for this report and doing all the work to get us to this point. I know the community is really excited about this court. There's lots of interest, and I'm excited that we've taken another step forward here. I did have a couple of questions. One is the inclusion in the capital plan. I'm not sure if Mr. Harmstrom's in the room, but I seem to recall that we initially put $50,000 towards this project in the capital plan. Wondering if you could verify that.
I can. Just give me one moment. I'll pull it up.
Great, thank you. And then my other question around is the variance permit. Is that something that we can, get rolling right away? What's the process for that?
Through the chair, that would be a planning application that would be submitted by the SCCA. They would need to provide a survey for where that the court was going to go. The expanded court size, we haven't received that yet. And there's an application process associated with that where there's a notification for neighbors, there may be other requirements on the basis of the site.
Thank you. Is that something that we can take the lead on starting to initiate, or is that the ball's in the FCCA's court to make the first step there?
I suppose if the board supported the project to proceed, it would come through from the SCCA or the Pickleball Association. It wouldn't necessarily be SRD-led, being their project, but
yeah,
we can
I'm just
provide that information.
Is it worth starting to move this forward now, so that we're just being efficient, or is this something that would best await a later stage?
I would suggest it would be premature until the board supported the project, because it would incur costs for the association.
Yeah, but once the board has supported it, yes, the principle of it is we would start moving forward with these items.
Okay.
And just to confirm, yeah, we do have $50,000 in the financial plan for it.
Okay, great. So the number 2 there, this report can actually be adjusted to say that is included in the financial plan, or do we need to make that amendment to 50 to 100?
it would need to be amended to be the actual ask.
Is, Mike, where's the source of funding, that 50? Is that gas tax?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, yeah, we can, again, if the board supports it, we will include the change in gas tax allocation.
Great. Okay, I'm prepared to, once we've received it, move option A.
Okay, anything further? Seeing nothing, I'll call a question on receipt. All those in favor? That's unanimous, carried. And the motion, Director Vinesh?
I'll move that the committee recommend that the SRD enter into a lease agreement with Southern Cortez Community Association and commit gas tax to construct and operate a multi-use sports court on Cortez Island.
Second.
All those in favor? And that is carried. Number 9, request for financial assistance, Quad Island Climate Action Network Society for receipt.
Move receipt.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? Seeing none? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That is carried. Motion, Director Mooney.
Thank you, Chair. I will move that the committee recommend that a grant and aid for the Quadra Island Climate Action Network Society in the amount of $2,315 be approved to assist with 2025-2026 liability insurance costs to be paid from the Electoral Area C grant and aid budget.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? And any opposed? None. That's carried. Number 10, request for economic development funding, Discovery Islands Chamber of Commerce for receipt.
Move receipt.
Second.
All those in favor? That's carried, unanimous. And the motion, Director Mooney.
Thank you, Chair. I'll move that the committee recommend that an economic development grant for the Quadra Island Chamber of Commerce in the amount of $5,727 be approved to assist with costs associated with the provision of 4 portable toilets and outdoor recreation areas on Quadra Island to be paid from the Electoral Area C Economic Development Service budget.
Second.
All those in favor? No one's opposed. That is carried. No bylaws, correspondence, treasury reports, new business. No new business. Addendum items, closed session for termination. A motion, please.
Move termination.
Second.
All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you, everybody. Meredith's
Thanks,
got a
everyone.
question for you. If you want to.